Welcome to Wednesday Prayer. This Lent, we're spending time with the Gospel of Mark, particularly chapter 4. And one of the lines in the Gospel of Mark from chapter 4 is after the parable of the sower, where Jesus says, "Pay attention to what you hear. The measure you give will be the measure you get." I think that's an important piece of advice for us. Pay attention to what you hear. So that's the invitation I've already put out to this Lent, to listen. But this line takes it a bit further. Pay attention to what you hear. How do you interact with what's around you? Where do you get your news sources from? What fills up your social media feed? Pay attention to what you hear. The measure you give will be the measure you get. I mean, think about that in terms of your Facebook feed or your Twitter feed or your Instagram feed. What is it that pops up consistently and constantly within that feed? I know I went through a phase, it's probably been about 5 years ago, where on my Facebook feed and on my Instagram feed, I got rid of anyone I was following because of my politics. And instead started following people who showed me images of nature or gardening or dancing. And so the feed that comes up now tells me the best places to hike in the San Francisco Bay Area. Shows me images of beautiful locations that I can visit. But that reminder to still pay attention to what you hear. For the measure you give will be the measure you get. Because the newest thing I found out is that some of those amazing, wonderful images of nature have been AI generated. Somebody will ask, show me a picture of a polar bear sleeping on a glacier. And pretty soon there's this beautiful, adorable image of a polar bear sleeping. But it may or may not be real. And it's something we're going to have to pay attention to think about, to let ourselves wonder about the beauty of creation and be aware of the possibilities that what we're seeing isn't real. And that definitely applies to your feed if it's full of politics. So pay attention to what you hear. I invite you to close your eyes, to breathe in deeply and release your breath. And I invite you to pay attention to what you hear. Jesus, you invite us to pay attention. And so we listen to that train rumbling by on the tracks with the whistle blowing, full of people, ready to pick up people. As we hear that train and we think about those people, we invite you to be with them. as we have been thinking about your seed and your word growing, may you be present with the people on that train and the people in that airplane flying overhead and those in the car with the horn. You know what they need before they even ask. You know the words, the song, the picture that will help them to experience the feeling that's needed right now. So God, bring that word, that picture, that song into their presence so they may experience you, that they may feel your will, that they may have a seed of your kingdom. But Holy God, as we pay attention, we also hear the sounds of the birds in my yard, the crows and the songbirds. Help us to open our ears to hear what's around us. To search out those places where we can experience your presence, where we can rest in that lovely beauty of a song. God, you invite us to pay attention to what we hear. And so as we listen to the news that enters our lives this week, as we hear the stories, the political stories, the violent stories, the war stories, help us to hear what you want us to hear. Help us to pray for those stories. And help us to better pay attention and listen. Remind us this week to pay attention and listen to what we hear. For the measure you give will be the measure you get. Pay attention. Amen.